Hi, and welcome to this new episode of Dreamers and Doers, where I interview people who follow their passion and use it to make the world better. And I think that's you, Andrew W. Gordon. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on.
And just to give a little bit of background, I joined a collective 2 months ago called the Freedom Collective, and we're leveraging social media and online businesses to create more purpose and more freedom for people. And so I joined early June, and basically I went through a mentorship and a training to start my business, to do digital marketing. And part of the mentorship was led by you, Andrew, and I thought it was really amazing because on top of the hard skills that I was learning, there was a big part on mindset. And I've been quite a bit into personal growth recently, and I think it's one of the best things I've done on personal growth because you know how you can go to a personal growth seminar and then you come back to real life, but then it's like a personal growth seminar for your whole life. And so I can see how being part of this business and collective is influencing everything in my life. So I wanted to ask you a few questions around the right mindset for an entrepreneur, especially for an online entrepreneur. But as usual, I'll start with your story and how, anything about your story and how you got into being an online business owner.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love that. You talked about the um, going to like those personal development seminars and events and whatever, and they're designed to almost be like a drug. You go in and you experience this huge high, and the fantastic ones, the high level performers like your Tony Robbins and things like that. There's like there's an intricacy in that, like built up, and it builds you up and then brings you down and builds you up again. And it's like it becomes this addictive dopamine hit you get, and then it's like, well, how do you integrate those things? How
Have
do you
you
take that?
have you done some of them?
I've not been to Tony. Oh, have I been to Tony? Yeah, I've not been to Tony Robbins, but I've been to a shit ton of others in my early days with like getting into personal development and also start becoming a coach. Yeah, just those events are addictive and they're designed to be that. They're designed to be incredible and to create change in a moment. But it's like, then how do you take that back into your life? Like, how does that become a consistent thing as you shift back into the every other person, the way they relate to you, all these other things? And that's why I feel like family is the most grounding and most challenging relationships we have, because family are always relating to you as they've known you. And if you're on this path of recreating yourself or shifting the way you show up in the world, the most challenging thing can be to have those that you love most relating to you and responding to you as you've always been, and when you just deep down desire to be something different. That's another conversation.
Yeah,
But yeah, my
that's
story, man.
interesting because I go to a lot of meditation meetings, and the one thing that comes back all the time is dealing with family.
Yeah, man. It's the truth that no one wants to look at. Like, and a lot of the reality is underneath a lot of this seeking to be better or improving or more spiritual, more connected, all of this stuff, there's quite often, not always, but quite often a subtle aggression against ourselves, a subtle aggression to who we are. And underneath this desire to be greater, make more of an impact, all this stuff, there's a part of us that doesn't feel who we are as present can be that, or isn't worthy, or isn't enough, or we're trying to prove it to mum or dad or Uncle Kevin, whoever they are. And quite often it's the part that we don't want to look at. But when looking at that and making peace with that and forgiving and having compassion for all those involved and the stories you made about them, that's where the real growth is. And yeah, so it's the hardest part of personal development, is actually that it's not the new techniques, the new strategies, the new information, the new rituals in your morning. It's the real most spiritual thing, is being a human.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, man, my journey, try and keep it short. uh yeah, so I'm not like, entrepreneurship was never something that I grew up with. Like, it wasn't in my family, and parents weren't entrepreneurs. My family had quite a poor view of people with money or having money, what it meant, greed, all that sort of thing. So I didn't grow up with a lot of money. Yeah, and I grew up in a home where my stepfather was quite he had his own pain. So it was quite mentally and emotionally sort of abusive and dominant, and then became physical as I got older. And I came out of, that those childhood years, coming into 18, becoming a man, figuring out the world. I had a very poor value and idea of myself, and I didn't have a lot of confidence, those sort of things. So was definitely not seeking to go against the grain into entrepreneurship. Like back then, entrepreneurship was almost cool now. It never was back then. But I was in a lot of pain. I didn't have the skills, didn't know about how to deal with it, and masked that through my life. So different jobs never really stuck with. I couldn't stand it. I was in and out of jobs. I was either quit or fired in the first 6 months. I was in relationships that were really toxic. I didn't know how to really be with someone in a healthy way. And so I was bringing toxic people into my life, and I was being toxic towards them. And I ended up early 20s, coming out of a really toxic relationship for a couple of years, really unhealthy, really not well. And I started working in nightclubs. A friend of mine brought into a club, and that was the greatest and the worst possible place to be, coming out of a long-term relationship and moving out with this person, everything. And I started drinking heavily. I started doing drugs. I became really addicted to cocaine, and then I went down a really steep decline at that time in my life where I was kind of like the man. Like I was able to hook you up with anything, musicians, celebrities coming in our club. We turned the club from like ships to the one on Saturday night down, all of this kind of stuff. And I got to have my ego filled, and but I was still masking that pain. I was using drugs, alcohol, women to mask that. And I ended up moving down a path where I was doing like debt collection, standover work for the guy that was giving me my coke because I couldn't afford it. And then I got into dealing, and I was dealing drugs, I was dealing cocaine, and that went like real fast down to a point where I was dealing a lot. I ended up nearly going to jail. I was facing a year and a half behind bars, and been shot at, and like really, really a rough time in my life.
What was the turnaround point?
Getting arrested on New Year's Eve and having to call my parents from a jail cell at like 3:45 in the morning, on January 1st, 2013. And that was the real wake up call for me. And it was also like, it was a lifesaver because I was working on a big deal where we were going to be like shipping and distributing stuff. And the 4 other guys that I was involved with, 2 of them are dead. One is in prison for a heap of different things. Another guy's like an enigma, but he's wanted by Interpol, wanted by Australian Federal Police, on a bunch of charges. I'm the only one that's, living my life kind of thing, apart from the guy on the run, but he knows what he's doing. And I had to, pay my penance for a lot of that stuff. I got a criminal record. I just avoided time behind bars, but I had to make amends with a lot of people. There's a lot of pain, a lot of pain I inflicted on people that I wasn't dealing with, and the next year and a bit from there, like 13 months, I was in and out of court cases. My life was in limbo, all this sort of stuff. And then remember facing court, having to say goodbye to my parents before I walked in, because if you get sentenced, you can't touch, you're taken away. It'll be weeks before I could see them. And saying goodbye to them and holding my mum, with like, she just fell apart in my arms, and I was just holding her up, and she was sobbing hysterically. And now as a parent, like now as a dad, I can feel it in a whole new way. But even then I could feel how much I had violated her basic just instincts as a parent, to be able to protect and nurture and keep me away from pain. And my actions had massively impacted that. And I saw my current stepfather, he was falling apart, and just like, before I walked in there, I just said to myself, no matter what happens in here, I will spend the rest of my life proving to people that your past means fuck all to what you create in the future. And it's kind of been the undertone, without even being consciously aware of it, to everything that I've done since then. And that was just 5.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And had 18 months on parole, couldn't leave the state, couldn't leave the country without permission. I was a person looking at me pissing a cup every week, staring at my dick, like that was my reality. I couldn't hold down a job. I'm doing that at 2:00 on a Tuesday afternoon and 11:30 on a Thursday the next week. It was a really challenging time in my life, but that's where I found, I guess, entrepreneurship. I think I did my like illegal apprenticeship of entrepreneurship and stuff with dealing, but that's where I found network marketing at the time. And that was my foray into entrepreneurship. And I was like, oh, this is like the legal version of what I was doing, like moving product through an organization that like I'd set up. And yeah, I sucked at that miserably for a year, you know, learning my trade, falling over, like struggling, but I fell in love with the personal development aspect. And that's where I touched on the start of the call.
Did you start straight away with the Freedom Collective or different
No,
method?
this was 2014. So this was 5 years ago. This was right after I got out of like the court case and stuff.
Okay.
And because I given a criminal record, I couldn't, I was in real estate at the time. I lost my sales license, you know, all those things. So, yeah, I found this and I found a group of people and that were just positive and inspiring and supporting me. And I found personal development and very much approached that from that place I said at the start of the call, like trying to get away from a part of myself. And, you know, then I went and studied NLP and became an NLP practitioner and a whole bunch of other modalities and different things. And I fell in love with the coaching aspect and supporting people in that industry. And I ended up stepping out of that, building a coaching business. I've launched other network marketing companies and things since then, but I very much moved into the personal development, coaching with people. And then, yeah, just went down a pathway where I loved what I did, but again, I built another identity to get away from the previous. And very soon I got to face the edge of my identity of coach and how I had built that up online and who I was meant to be as opposed to who I was. And again,
So
that sort of came.
did you feel you were showing an image that was kind of sometimes like, oh, the perfect guy or super healthy guy, and that wasn't authentic?
Yeah, I think I was showing the image that I thought I had to be the successful coach.
Okay.
And I wasn't showing the full extent of me, and I would hide away when that part of me didn't feel present. And
it's interesting.
yeah,
I feel now in this domain on social media, I guess you agree, authenticity is winning, right?
Yes, and there's a lot of fake authenticity that a lot of people use, and I have a like strong
To
nose.
get attention.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've lived it. I've been the master manipulator. I've been the narcissist. I've been the dominator. I've been the aggressor. Like I've played all these roles in my life. So that's actually what had me end up being quite successful in coaching is like, I could lay down with the dogs, you know, I could lay down with the fleas. Like I'd been there on the streets and I ended up working with a lot of people that had been in high crime, high trauma, like rape, abuse backgrounds, helping them shift out of that and heal and release some patterns because I'd been there. As opposed to, you know, the shiny shrink, like, you know, answer all the questions here and couldn't relate. So I see that online now. It's like, I've got a strong scent for when someone's bullshitting or when they're real. And there's a lot of staged realness that's bullshit, which is what I was doing. But now it's like evolved to people using the right words like authentic and radical self-responsibility and alignment and like, you know, divine mission and all these other words, but it's still the same shit. It's still someone's ego or spiritual ego that's been built to keep them safe or keep the world away from the part of them they don't have peace with yet. Not to knock, there are people that are doing that and living that life and they still make an impact. But yeah, it's like that person's drinking their own poison.
Yeah. You can see it a bit in it's true about the vulnerability, like people who make it a part of their identity and get attention through doing it. Yeah. And so to go back then to the business owner, so through the Freedom Collective, you're doing really well now. You're the leader of a big team doing training and a great coach for that whole community. What would you say is the best quality of a business owner, especially online business and working with other people, but more as a solopreneur?
I think it's hard to put it down to just one. I think there's key aspects of leadership that are incredibly relevant for each area of, say, a business or someone's growth. So like for me, leadership, for example, isn't a title or isn't a dollar figure or things like that. Like a real leader for me is one who leads themselves in their own life.
Mm.
So are they doing that for themselves in their own way? Are they holding themselves to their own accountability in that? Like for me right now, I'm in a time where, like, every time before we see an expansion in our business or finances or, whatever, like in our life, there's always a squeeze. There's like the squeeze that expands into something else. And we're in that now. I've watched like finances tighten up in certain areas that I like didn't plan on or see. I was like, whoa. And then other things and tightness in our relationship and stuff. So for me right now, I'm in a squeeze moment. I'm not in a space where I feel super like this is amazing and you should see all this stuff too. It's a challenge, but I know that this portion of that or this experience I'm having is that like set up for the next thing. And for me, vulnerability is as much a key thing for a business owner, or someone who's in a leadership role in a company or in anything that they do, is like that vulnerability, that they also have like a servant orientation where they're like willing to lead, they're willing to address the problems and take full responsibility for their business and what's going on. Resilience is another quality I think that is so key, because on days like today, when with everything going on in my life today and my son being sick and not sleeping well and all this other stuff and challenging my relationship, challenging the business, the last fucking thing I wanted to do was do a podcast. Like I feel the least inspiring of how I feel, but instead of getting on here and trying to bullshit or fluff it up, it's like, it's more powerful to be real. And for me, the power is in the resilience. Like, am I willing to still show up and be committed to my word, no matter how I'm feeling? So yeah, for me, vulnerability, for servant orientation, resilience is key. And not humility, but I think coachability, like a willingness to own that we know shit all. Like we know virtually nothing. Like what you know, but there's a lot that you don't know. So always be willing to learn and grow and adapt and be open to that. Like they're really key qualities for me that I think I really value, that I aim to embody, and also very clear where and when I don't. And I think those are really key qualities that I see in leadership. And then the last one, I think on like a higher level leadership, is the ability to remove your emotional attachments and your emotional self from decisions sometimes. So sometimes in business, whether it's hiring, firing, it's making decisions on behalf of, say, a collective or a group or your organization, that you have to be able to make decisions on the better of all, even when sometimes that may not be the best possible decision for you. If you believe it's best for your company or your movement or your organization, whatever label you want to apply, the ability to remove your emotional bias and be able to weigh out all sort of scenarios and be able to make the best possible decision. I think that's a really high quality and high level of leadership, decision making. And that can be quite challenging, especially when you're, say you're like a solopreneur or you're running a small business. It's like sometimes it's like anything. It's like you got to lead you and do you in your own life, and same like, fill your own cup up first. But then there are also some unique experiences where sometimes you got to make a decision that doesn't feel the best, but it's the better of all. So yeah, they're the few.
Yeah, this one's interesting also. When you do network marketing, so you like you enroll people, and attachment is interesting because sometimes I know I've joined like less than 2 months ago, and sometimes I know people that would smash it, or would love to work together. I think it'd be perfect, and then I become attached, and I can see how you push your own beliefs and your own vision on other people, and that's not really respecting their trusting that they know what's good for them.
Yeah, I think you, as a leader, you have to be able to discern like when people want it and when they don't, and to not want things. Like you can't want something for someone more than they want it for themselves. And you have to be able to know when to be able to step back out of that and step away from that and release that attachment when you can feel that person isn't wanting it as much as you do.
And that's why we were referring to personal growth in everyday life, is because this is going to be true for everything, regardless of if the fact that most people don't realize it, but often we enter relationships projecting what we want of the other person rather than looking them for who they are. Or like, even if you if you want someone in your family to meditate and you push it too much, that's going to be counterproductive. So I can
Yeah, you can provide the options, but
yeah,
you can't convince someone to do it. And
yeah.
it's the same thing too. Like, I'm a massive advocate for Dr. Joe Dispenza's work,
Yes,
and what
love
it's done
it.
in mine, and just the way in which he, in a realm of meditation and how powerful that is, there's a lot of sort of woo-woo spiritual connotations that people just, brush it off with and don't understand the science behind it. And so what I love with him is, like, he's actually such an eloquent way of breaking down the science and the data and stuff with meditation that then opens it up to a much larger portion of people than probably would approach those things. So he's someone that has done a lot in my life practicing his work, but I'm a massive advocate for him. And then still, I talk to hundreds of people about him. There's not hundreds of people that take action in that area.
Yeah.
It's, when people are ready, they'll always step in.
I can back that up. I'm listening at the moment to Becoming Supernatural. That's his most recent book. It's really amazing. And through the Freedom Collective, I've changed my meditation practice. Used to be Vedic meditation that I loved, but I've been doing Joe Dispenza's meditation, the box meditation, for almost 2 months now. And I feel like going in the quantum field and coming back in a different box has accelerated my personal growth journey. So thanks.
Yeah, man, I'm about to upload something else into our group, one of his latest meditations, and yeah, it's a different one. Like the Vedic, or the TM was the brand name of it now, but that is, yeah, just a different experience. It's really powerful and like drops you in like an anchor and can drop you into that deeper state of rest. But this one of actually understanding what's happening and starting to, it's almost like lucid dreaming. Like once you realize you're in that space of what you can experience in that space, it's like you have free reign, free control, as opposed to just a total nothingness space. It's just a different blend. But yeah, like for example, that's been so powerful in the journey of entrepreneurship too. Like the ability to connect not just with yourself but beyond yourself and step out of this reality of life, business, whatever, is incredible. That's why there's also such a huge pull towards plant medicine now. Like it's not just that it's incredible, there's like a social trend to it now. It's kind of become cool. Entrepreneurship came cool like 5 years ago. It's like, the next thing. And
you're talking to someone that did a podcast about it 2 weeks ago. So I'm definitely in that trend of being cool through plant medicine.
Yeah, but I love it, man. Like I've sat with ayahuasca, I've sat with mushrooms, like I microdose with mushrooms. Like I think it's incredibly powerful as a tool and what's there. But like anything, it's there. You can overconsume on anything, and you can I just think like that sort of stuff is what the modern day entrepreneur is quite often seeking as well. It's like the capacity to step out of the present day reality that we've built and we're living inside of. That's so key for growth. Is, can you surrender? Can you disconnect from deadlines and numbers and income and shit like that, to just chill the fuck out for a bit?
Especially for an entrepreneur, because you can be like working on Sundays, being 24/7 on your emails. At least when you're an employee, it's more like when you leave the office, it's less in your head. While when you're quite passionate about it, it's really important, I feel, to have these rules to disconnect.
Totally. If you struggle with boundaries, or you struggle with that element of your life of giving to yourself or time to disconnect, and it's not a natural thing for you, that you're like, yep, cannot wait, and it's hard to let go, absolutely, like scheduling time, making commitments, picking a day, picking an afternoon, whatever, that's going to have you do that. Lock your shit away in drawers, like, or give it to your housemate. Say, don't give this back to me until 7. Whatever you need to do, that is key.
Have you done Vipassana?
No.
So yeah, for the listeners, Vipassana is a 10-day silent retreat meditation. I discovered it through Tim Ferriss though, and I find that it's actually a good entrepreneurial tool to like reset and get away a bit and come back fresh.
Yeah,
and you disconnect completely from anything for 10 days, which is good.
Yeah, like I've not sat in it, but it's anything like that. It's like, if you can retreat from your life for a period of time and face the the dull noise and the subtle flow that sits behind this life,
Mm-hmm.
you learn and face a lot. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff that is trying to come through, but we live in a world that we have created that is so noisy, and we start to use the noise to avoid the silence. But in the silence is your greatest truths, your toughest smack in the mouth. Like it's all there for you, your lessons, the things that you want. And it's a great ask nowadays to ask people to retreat from their life for a week, 10 days, what you know, whatever it is. It's like fasting, you know. Can you retreat from the emotional experience of consuming food for a period of time, you know, instead of just, you know, eating 8 hours a day and 16 off? Like, can you fast for a week, 2 weeks, a month? You know, what happens during those things? Anything that you can do to alter the routine, just the autonomic, unconscious way you're living, is so powerful, because it's just new energy, it's new ideas, it shifts things up, and it builds a different experience that you have with the unknown, you know?
That's interesting. Actually, the podcast just before you were two brothers who fasted for 40 days. Do you fast?
I haven't fasted for that. I've done like a couple week juice fast, like intermittent fast. But I'm just about to, yeah, I've been looking at a 40-day, a 2020
Wow.
fast as well. I think I know the guys that you're talking about. They're on Instagram as, it's like
Fasting the healer within?
Fast the Healer Within. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So I know.
Something like this.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been feeling called to that as well, and it's like it's a monumental challenge. And I think that's healthy too, especially when we go back to business and entrepreneurship. It's healthy to seek that, like seek to come build a different relationship with it. You know, seek the unknown, seek those challenges. That it's not so much what you achieve, it's like who you get to experience yourself as in the process. That's where the greatest magic is, where you find your limits, where you find your I can't do this anymore. That's where the magic is. You know, I watched my fiance give birth to our son. I was in the room, and like dozens and dozens of times she got to that upper limit of pain that she thought she couldn't tolerate anymore. And the greatest uniqueness with birth is like, this guy's coming out. Like, he's here now, he's coming out. It's no like, oh, I just need a day, I'm gonna go to the spa for a day, or I'm gonna just see some friends for a day. Like, there's no way to check out, there's no way to back out. There's just, I am here and I am in, there's no other option. And I watched my fiance hit that upper limit where she like looked at me and was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't. And she chose like drug-free, nothing. So felt everything. Wow. And was like, I'm going to need this. And I'm like, babe, like the decision you made before you in this heightened state, like that's what we're with. It's like, you got this. And watching someone meet that over and over and over again and go higher than what they thought they could do. And it's like, I can't do this anymore. This is it. And like, it's just, you see the real power of what's available to us when we create an environment that no backdoor is tolerated.
Nice. She's a warrior. You can send her my congratulations on that.
Yeah, she's a queen.
That I'll probably never get to experience for sure. But
I don't want
to. Another one I like to do in the same style is cold water in the morning, pushing yourself.
Totally.
And to go back, so you talked about full responsibility. And since I've joined this collective, there's something that I really like, which is how I get at the same time a lot of support. And when I feel I'm a bit in a victim mode, or I like, it's not about babysitting either, you know, it's like supporting, but like you have to take responsibility. So having that middle ground between, and I actually really like the structure, because then you have people that are kind of business partners, but you're quite independent too. So about full responsibility, it makes me think of, have you read Ray Dalio?
Yeah, Principles.
He has a concept I really like called tough love. And you can apply it to business. Like, you really want other people to succeed, but because you want them to succeed, you're not going to do everything for them, and you're not going to answer the stupid questions when they can Google it and things like this. So do you want to elaborate on this, on having that balance as a leader between helping out, supporting, and empowering through letting people being responsible.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between a hand up and a hand out. And a lot of people are looking for a hand out because a hand up is still effort. But really they want a hand up. They really want to be able to do it themselves. They want to learn things. They want to do that. But in those times where it's challenging, we're just like, oh, please just take it away. You know, like, please, can you answer this for me or you do this for me? It's like, if I just never let my son fall over or try to crawl or all these other things, or like if I didn't let him experience things that he needs to be able to start to learn how to crawl, to learn to walk, to eat solids and things like that, then I'm preventing him from doing that, even though I'm doing it for him and it feels so good to give to him and he loves me because I give him everything he needs. I'm not really building a healthy individual here. I'm building a codependent relationship that over a period of time becomes wearing on myself and wearing on my son. And the same thing is in business, in romantic relationships, in friendships. It's like, it's so important, especially in business. I feel if I'm like playing like a mentor role, it's like, am I showing up and supporting you and holding you to a standard that I know is required for you to experience what you say you want to experience? You know, I'm more than happy to be the dick that you're like, just fucking answer my question. Like, he always tells me to go watch training or go look here, or asks me a question, tells me to Google it. It's like, I know I could Google it, but I asking you, like, I'm more than happy to be the dick in someone's head, because I didn't do it the way they wanted, so that they learn it. Because every time in 6 months, 12 months, whatever, the conversation arises like, hey, 12 months ago when I told you to fuck off and I blocked you on Facebook, like, I really got so much from that over the next year and things that happened for me. So I'm really glad you did that. And like, that for me that's a great quality of leadership, because it's easy to do something for someone. Quite often it's a saving of my time to just answer someone's question, as opposed to like, have you looked here, when I know they haven't looked here? What did you find? Have you Googled it? Like, I'm asking questions to be polite, or not polite, but to be, I guess, gentle in my delivery, as opposed to like, go watch the training instead of asking me. But it's the same thing. It's like, that is what is required to build an organization. It's are you empowering people to find their own confidence, their own experiences? They have that independence, they have that self-reliability and that self-confidence that as they grow, they can shift. And it's whether you have a company where you have employees, or you have a company like we do, where we have a lot of like business partners and brand people that we mentor. Like, our business is built off mentoring other business owners, helping them grow their business, their skill sets, their mindset, those things. It's the same thing. It's like, a lot of business owners with employees just like tell them what to do, how to do it, but it doesn't build a culture. It doesn't build a company. It doesn't build an organization of people that are reliable and self, and that bring their own creativity through. They're always looking for approval, looking for someone else. And that's the biggest shift I see between employee and entrepreneur or a business owner, is like that shift of waiting for someone else to give you permission, looking for someone else to tell you what to do, and believing that like, I'm here to create my own business. I'm here to create my own ideas and visions, and implementing that, being willing to do that and make mistakes. Whereas in a job, you're like, don't make mistakes because you're going to get disciplined.
Yeah, and just to explain, because I think most of the listeners wouldn't really know what network marketing is actually, is it's an interesting model where you recruit people who are also then in charge of their own business, but you're vested in their success. So you want them to do well, because financially you also personally do well if they do well. But it's that relationship where you're vested in them, but you're not dependent on them. So if you recruit someone, you really want them to do well. But that being said, if they don't do the work, or they don't show up, you're not stuck. You can still go on your business. And I find that it's a really healthy relationship, where when you're an employee, usually you lack a bit, let's say the responsibility, I find. And when you're in a traditional business partnership, you can be stuck with the people you recruit, or if you're a solopreneur, that's quite lonely. So it's a mix where you recruit people, you're vested in their interest, but everyone's still independent.
Yeah, I think the industry network marketing has a really bad rap, because there's a lot of a lot of outdated ways of building a business or organization through that industry. And there's a
Actually,
lot of
I had quite a bad image of it even like 4 or 5 months ago. You know,
yeah, and then like
bugging your friends and pyramid
totally,
schemes and all these things.
and there's yeah, there's a lot of people in that industry that don't operate with a lot of integrity and do that. And there's a lot of companies that put on a beautiful front image, but in the back end, they're awful, man. They're so cut and dry, and they just screw over distributors and things like that. So for me, like, I love what we do where, like, one of the things we do is like affiliate with a company that is a network marketing direct sales company. We affiliate with their products, so we love it, but it's like more about teaching people the skill sets of like how to market, how to digitally build online, how to create influence, how to do these things, because that's the most empowering thing. Because then, like, you know, we affiliate for products that are not in network marketing companies, you know, products that we align with, things like that. We monetize that, we drive traffic to that. We essentially, I provide people with the education, different platforms, the same with you, that they can skill themselves up and learn how to fundamentally create finances, positioning themselves online to set themselves up. You know, we can go down a tangent here, but one thing that I see with traditional business owners and just the current society is that a lot of people, we had a national election here in Australia earlier this year, and one party was saying one thing, others are saying like raise the minimum wage, and other ones are doing different tax agreements. And you know, my mates are like small business owners, own franchise, and they're like, shit, man, if they get into government, that's gonna fuck us. Like, we can't afford to raise the minimum wage this way or these things. And a lot of people are lost in the game of politics. I think one side or the other will create change, shift, and don't see beyond that bubble that the people that are behind politics, the conglomerates, the people that are, you know, running most central banks around the world, all of this sort of stuff, they have an invested interest in there being a two-party thing, and that one versus the other and this stuff, it's just a Broadway show, man, that people are buying tickets to and watching every night, and that no real decisions ever get made, no real decisions ever really change. It always sort of remains the same. And that we're not going to, as a business owner, we're not really going to create change in the current model. And what I see the most powerful thing that people can do is that, unfortunately, the way we are right now, your Apples, your Facebooks, your Googles, or YouTube's part of Google, like your huge conglomerates, your huge data owners in the world, they are massive, like beyond massive. But beyond like fathom, like if they're in like a country GDP for what they do, they're one of the biggest countries in the world. And so there's never going to be companies that just compete with them. They're so big now that they'll buy up, eat up, or destroy any competition. So now the real shift that occurs is, over the next couple of decades, like the minimum wage is going to get increased and these sort of things. And people think that that's great for the everyday person, but it's not. It's great for the conglomerates. It's great for the huge companies because they can spread that. You put a 4% increase on wages, that screws, you know, Kevin's bottle store down on the corner because he's only making $4,000 profit a month on top of his employees. Whereas Amazon can spread that 4% increase across their products and things like that, and it's fine. But now they eat up all the local stores and Amazon steps in. So this is where people need to like wise up. And unless you are like only 20 franchises as a small business owner, or you're building a really unique style business that's highly sought after, shifting into the digital space, understanding these skill sets of digital marketing, traffic, copywriting, essentially affiliate marketing, like that's what's going to support people to position themselves financially. Because there's a lot of small business owners that are going to they're going to go away. A lot of jobs are going to go away because of technology and the advancements in robotics and AI. So over the next 10 years, there's going to be a huge shift. So if you can partner yourself with the big conglomerates like Facebook, like Google, like Amazon, you can partner with the massive conglomerates that are huge distributors of product. And you can understand the value of being able to position yourself to create a following, create attention, create a brand. And then with the influence of that brand, drive traffic to products, brands, businesses, things like that. That's how you monetize yourself, and you get in front of the wave that is going to come, and that you don't end up being the last guy getting smacked over the head with the anchor as it drags past you, as so many small business owners shut down, so many jobs get replaced and automated. And that, it's quite a dark thing to talk about, but it's real and it's happening. And you're not going to change policies and politics, because most societies are so built into this two-party verse system in politics. Even though we all go, oh, this is so shit, this is so stupid, I don't even want to vote for whoever's, like, they're all shit. Like, most people are in that space. As a society, we're not all going to rise up and challenge a new system and do that, because we're so watching the show. We're so invested in it, we can't see another option. So the reality is that the conglomerates are going to get bigger. They are going to have more of a monopoly. They are going to do these things. And it's like, well, do you want to keep fighting it and beating at the door, even though they don't care, they don't listen? Or do you want to actually get in front of it, position yourself, benefit off it, and then from a place of higher influence, higher capacity to invest and spend, create a change? What we do, I want to see thousands of people that I'm connected with making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, millions of dollars a year, that have influence, that have potential, that they have wealth and they have influence, like attention, that we can do shit with. We can invest, we can buy things, we can make a difference, as opposed to, you know, everyone sitting at the dinner table complaining about politics and not earning enough, and we need more holidays and all that bullshit. So that's where I see the value in what we do. It's like learning these skills to do that, whether you want to take that to network marketing, whether you want to monetize yourself to get contracts with other small business owners in your area to help them create more leads, more sales, or you want to build that for your own business, you know, like whatever it is, it's so, so powerful. And it's, you either wake up and you see that, or you're going to get a reality check that most people are used to, which is we take serious action from crisis. We wait for crisis to occur. We wait to get cancer. We wait to get fired. We wait to break our leg. And then we take action, as opposed to taking preventative. We take the cure point.
That's super interesting. I mean, that's a whole different conversation, but I was listening to a podcast with Joe Rogan with Naval Ravikant, and he was talking about how, great podcast, by the way. And he was talking about how, the question was, who are the most influential, the most powerful people, according to you? And he said, well, probably the people who do the algorithms of Facebook and Google. But anyway, different conversation. But what you talked about also about working with Facebook, working with Amazon, that's something that really struck with me, because one of the reasons I started also 2 months ago was before I was having my coaching business, and I was trying to do everything alone. And I think it's a natural way to graduate at some point from being independent to become more interdependent, and understanding that the true wealth is in working with others, leveraging others, being a better leader by accepting to be coachable also, and to learn from them. So for me, it was really like being more of a leader, and staying very independent while linking my success to other people, you know, like a cliche, 1 + 1 = 10. So I think that's a really, really good point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't get it. That's the biggest thing. And that's where I feel responsible in what we do as a business. Is like, we are really just bridge builders. Like, there's a lot of people that are not really living life in the way they desire. There's a lot of people just kind of accepting and going through the motions. A lot of people existing, not a lot of people living. But deep down, once people get past that, like they've just accepted life, if you go back to it, there are dreams and desires and aspirations. And people would love to be able to create an income themselves that they generate, that's not location dependent. So not in an office or whatever. They can work from home, plane, travel, whatever suits them. And that they control their time, and they have an abundance of income that enables them to do what they desire. That's really what people want. And for most people, that's about 10x what they're currently earning. So, you know, someone's earning 60 grand, 600 grand a year would be the thing that would allow them to do everything and have everything they want with their current desire, their current imagination. That would obviously expand and extrapolate as the income comes through. But like, that's the reality. That's the facts. And a lot of people just don't think it's possible. or don't get it. They don't get how powerful the online space is and what's
Yeah.
actually there. Or they see a lot of people being fake as shit online, or scamming, or doing bullshit, or that everyone's been burned or scammed some way. Like, that's people's narrative that they've created to keep themselves safe, right? Safe from going into the unknown, exploring it, whatever, or safe from exploring the reality that they're choosing to live a life that they could be doing more and experiencing more, but they're not. So it's easy to say, oh, it's just scams and bullshit online, so they don't have to face the reality they're choosing this. So there's a lot of that stuff. But what I feel responsible with and what I take great pride in is being a great bridge builder. It's like, can I relate to people? Can I be someone online, or the content that I put out that people are like, man, this dude gets me. Like, instead of just spinning all this shit, I'm like, man, like, I really relate to this guy. Like, he gets me. He gets what I'm going through. He's been there, so that the people actually are willing to listen. So I have someone's attention. And then when I have that attention, can I cleanly and clearly articulate the power of the digital space?
Yeah.
Can I provide them with value and resources that are going to support them to become greater and more educated and greater skills in that space, so that they can monetize themselves in the way that they desire most, the way that aligns with them? That's where I take responsibility in our business. That's where I feel our greatest business growth is. And that's why we've partnered up with platforms that are like the most phenomenal educational platform on the planet for digital marketing fundamentals, how to get eyeballs on an offer, how to find offers, like how to do all that shit. And in the digital marketing or affiliate marketing space, like, that's the greatest shift and the greatest opportunity that I feel is right here, right now for people, is learning those skill sets, partnering with offers that you actually align with and that you can see, and learning how to drive and scale that. Because people think that, like, that's not even a business. I know people that just find a product that they drop ship, they set up a funnel, they run it, great ads, the great metrics, and they make like 250K 6 days off just a funnel. That's not a business. Like, they don't have a business built off that. It's not in the back end, but they just did that as a cash cow, as part of their business. And they take that and invest into something else in their business. Like, it's so possible for so many people. But I think a lot of people sit in fear or doubt. And that's where, like, we get to show up and make more of a difference to people as people that are implementing that. How can I more effectively educate and empower people to back themselves, to step in and trust themselves, take action, and own their skill set, like own their skills, put in their work and grow and learn that, but monetize themselves whilst they're learning it.
And actually, that's a good segue for, do you think it's that anyone can do that?
For sure, man. Like, none of us could talk, none of us could walk. Like, we all came here and we're just a little meat sack, like falling around, couldn't get our hands to work. And somehow all of us are walking now, we're talking, we can have conversation, we can do 1 + 1, like, it's all skill sets. Like, anything that we do now or think now is learned. Everything.
Growth mindset.
Yeah, it's like, you can learn anything, whether you're like, I'm working with someone now I directly mentor who's in her 60s doing and learning this.
That's what I love about this initiative. I see like stay-at-home moms that have never touched the Facebook ads being really good because they just follow the training. And actually, that makes me think of one of my very good friend. He's selling AI online courses on Udemy. I think it's one of the most sold in the world. He's smashing it. And he asked him, do you think anyone can work on AI? And he was like, yeah, it's just about learning. And people don't realize, because to them it's like something, you have to be a wizard or something. But like, probably 60 years ago, when people were mainly working in factories or farms, like, you would ask, oh, can anyone study and work in an office? People would be like, oh no, it's just for some people. So I think I definitely follow you on this.
Yeah. Like, I see, man, there's no one that can't learn this stuff. Like, if you've been a tradie and you work with your hands and you don't even like have a smartphone, like, you can learn all this stuff. It's just learning and implementing. Like, it's so simple to do if you adopt that mindset. Like, I'm going to learn this, I'm going to implement it. And support is key. Like, why our thing is so powerful is like having that tribe of people around you that are doing the same shit in your own industries, your own areas, your own markets, things like that, but actually having a mastermind in a group where people can answer questions because they've been doing it 6 months longer than you. Like, that's so powerful. And that's why I'm seeing so many results come out of our space, is that people aren't doing it alone. And that's the scariest shit in business. Like, to be a solopreneur and to do it, you know, by yourself and figure it all out. And then you're buying this $5,000 program and this thing over here, and then this $20,000 mastermind, and like all this shit invested, when it's like, you haven't even got the sales happening yet. You haven't even learned how to do that. And I think people just don't get how simple it can be. It can be difficult to set up all by yourself, but like, to give an example with numbers, like let's say you sell a product that's your own, or you make a commission on a product that's $1,000, right? And you learn the skill sets to write good content online or make a cool little video, and you learn the power of Facebook advertising and how to run traffic, essentially run attention past that offer. But instead of just selling it directly, maybe you give value to your audience first. You create some kind of downloadable PDF or video series or whatever that you offer them in exchange for their email or exchange for that. And then you have a webinar or an automated thing set up that then presents and educates people on your offer that you're not having to do to everyone, right? So like, you have these things set up, and at the end of that webinar or that offer, they have the opportunity to buy that. And if they don't, they fall into a series of, say, automatic emails that you've got up that continue the conversation, that continue the education, and that give them opportunities to do that. And let's say you had shitty conversions of like 10% of at each stage of people move on to the next one. So let's say you had people that would download your free thing. 10% of people that saw your free thing would download it. And then 10% of people that downloaded that thing would register for this webinar or whatever that taught them video series. And then 10% of people that saw that would actually buy your product and make a commission. So essentially 1 in every 1,000 that see the offer actually buy, which is really shit conversions. But let's say you learn the skill set to drive traffic past that in an effective way. You understand your market, you understand who you're talking to, you have a product that gives them value, that helps them, that is an answer to their solution, and is priced at a point that is less valuable than the value they get for this solution being sold. And your content and things that you give to people actually helps them and teaches them and shows them how this does that. And that the free thing you give to them, or the value you give to them, is something they can take away and implement right now without having to buy this thing. But obviously, if they bought this thing, they would get a lot more than just doing it all by themselves. Like, that's all digital marketing is on a simple basis. And let's give a number. Let's say you put 100,000 views past that initial offer, that initial download or PDF or whatever, that equals 100 sales on those shitty conversions. And we say that $1,000 was the sale point or the commission. There's $100,000. And if you've put 100,000 views past it, I guarantee you're not spending $100,000 to get 100,000 views. It's remarkably less. Even if it was $10,000 you're spending to get 100,000 views, which is a shit ton, and it's not the case, you're still making 90 grand profit. And like, that's the power of these skill sets, of learning these things and implementing it. And that's what I think a lot of people lack the understanding of, or they just see shit. They see the offer, they see the marketing online, and don't get like what's behind it. When you get what's behind it, then you can build your own stuff.
But that's why I'm so happy to have found like probably the best product to do that and to train, because it can get overwhelming when you do it on your own. And I've been there. Like, I've bought the perfect webinar program and then trying to set up my own webinars, but I was doing this for low ticket items, and there were so many variables in it that I was getting overwhelmed and lost. And that's why I find it really good to have found something that works where like I can focus on a specific area than trying to learn to fish, but at the same time trying to build the boat and doing all the things at the same time, which makes it really hard to learn. While here you reduce the number of variables. And the other thing you talked about is definitely support. People vested in your support while keeping my full responsibility. I'm happy that people are creating these things that make everything easy for me. And accountability. Like last week, I was watching this call where it was like, I was like, shit, I'm not doing, like that chick was talking about like, I'm not doing what I signed up for. I wanted to do Facebook ads, and now I'm posting on Facebook my life and the things. That's not what I signed up for. I was like, shit, that's exactly me. And the day after, like boom, I started my ads and I'm starting to get quite a lot of leads. But it's sometimes really good. And I consider myself as someone very self-motivated compared to the average, but even like I need, like it really helps me to have this accountability. So that's accountability is a really good one too. And I'll have a last question on the mindset, which is I something that worked on me since I joined too is how much things are self-fulfilling prophecies. Like if you think you can, it happens. If you think you can't, it happens too. And things are going to prove you right, whatever you choose. And made me reflect on what I think I'm good enough for, because I can see sometimes when I'm going to recruit someone, maybe I'm going to self-sabotage because I think I'm not good enough to be a leader for them, or there's something about me that thinks I'm not worthy of receiving the money too, because that can be high levels of money. So it can tie up also to money mindset. But how do you think this business works on the worthiness or the feeling of being good enough?
Yeah, man, I think relationships, kids, and business are like the greatest personal development in the world. Because it's shit you can't hide out from. Like if you hide out from your business falls over. You hide out from your relationship falls over. You hide out from your kids, you're gonna hear about it. Like there is no escape. Where it's like, with everything else in life, you can hide out, you can do that, you can call and stick to your work. Like for me, it's the greatest self-realization, the greatest mirror to look at in your life all the time, and quite often you will see yourself or what's going on for you directly reflected in your business.
Mm.
You know, if things aren't flowing in the relationship area, they might not start flowing in the business area. And so I think any business, especially community, there is a strong, we do put strong emphasis on embodiment and mindset and really reflecting on yourself and looking at what's there for you. I think it just dials that up, dials the intensity up and the heat up a little bit more in that, because again, also, not only are we recommending it and implementing it, but again, you're exposed, you're in a culture or a community where you're exposed to seeing it, and you're seeing other people do it and create results and stuff. You're like, shit, I really need to do that. I really need to start implementing that, because that's 1, 2, 3, 7, 10 people now that are implementing these things and talking about the results they've had. So I think it makes it more vivid, more intense, more real. And there's just a greater sense of accountability and like awareness of these things. You can't really sort of hide and avoid it.
Yeah, and again, that's why I think, having done Date with Destiny, having done quite a few things, I think that's honestly hands down the best personal growth experience I've done. So yeah, I'll have a last question ask to my guest, which is, what is the impact you want to have in the world?
I guess, man, my impact with the world starts in my home. Like it's not really worth shit to what I do in the world if at the end of my time here on my deathbed that there's no one standing around it, or those that I love most and those that I spend the most time with aren't there with a smile on their face, aren't rejoicing on my life. They're talking about what they missed, and those sort of things. So for me, that the worldwide impact or the global impact, or all these other things that feel great for our ego and that sound great, that for me is built off what we do in our home. So my global impact, man, is really like, what sort of father am I? What sort of partner am I? That for me is my global impact. And then beyond that, like the vision I have for my family and for the world is like, I really want to empower people, or be an example of someone living their truth, like living their life, and experiencing deep personal freedom in every sense of that word. That's what matters to me. That's what I'm inspired by, is people being free, not just financially, but personally, in relationships, in their health, in their sexuality, like feeling real freedom in who they are. And it's something I see in you, bro. Like there is a confidence in you and a willingness in you to pursue or look at anything. It's not a lot of, no doubt we all have our doubts and things like that, but there's just a willingness to take action, to try things, to do that. Like, that's the way I want to see people living, because a lot of people live in a shell, live in doubt, live in fear. And if I can have an impact on that and see a more empowered society, a more empowered culture, that for me is great joy. And I have other things like creative visions. Like, I believe the creators, like the musicians, the filmmakers, the photographers, all of those creative expressions have the greatest capacity to create change in this world. So that's why, we founded the Creative Prosperity Movement. Like, I wanted to see more creatives experiencing prosperous wealth. And that's where I see the real shifts occurring in this world, not through politics, not things like that, but actual real stories and art and expression. So there's a bigger vision in that stuff, but at the crux of it all is all the same thing. It's just, I want people to feel free, to feel confident, to feel happy in who they are. And that is as much about the individual and the self as well as it is, money. And they're not separate. It's like money, business, sex, relationships, family, all of that. It's all interlinked. So that's what deeply inspires me. That's my vision. And it starts in my home first. And if it's not happening there, more often than not, I don't really care about anything else.
Thanks, Andrew. So we're going to end this episode, but I think we could have gone for another hour about creativity and how I think we both think everyone's creative, but it's sometimes repressed, especially in our society. I mean, I lived it for me. I was raised with the image of the smart kid, which is not the worst one, right? Some people have the image of the stupid kid or the criminal, but part of it was that I never identified as someone creative. And I've unleashed that a little bit in the past 2 or 3 years through music and through improv comedy and the things. And I know a lot of people who think they're not the creative type, but I think you'd agree with me that I'd encourage them to double check on this.
Yeah, I think it's a bigger thing. It's just like identity, like what we think a creative person is or a happy person is. And it's like, it's like people doing crimes, right? And I have direct experience with it. Instead of seeing someone as a criminal, see it as a person that did a crime. Instead of seeing someone that's a creative person, it's like, see someone as an individual that's unleashing their creativity. It's someone like, that's for me is the biggest thing, is if we stop identifying to the thing, we create the space and the freedom to be all, because we're all fluid beings, but we get conditioned and we live into a world that's very rigid, and there's rigidity. And like the ocean outside my door moves in and out every single day. If I surrender to the flow of that, then I get to experience it all. But if I'm trying to be something else, I'll eventually be corroded away by the natural flow of life.
Thank you, Andrew W. Gordon. I think you're a really beautiful man, and gratitude is a big part of our training when we join the collective. So I'm really grateful to have had you as a mentor during 30 days and then in this podcast, of course, and to keep getting your support. We have a tradition in this podcast, because usually we do it in person, is to have a big hug. So even though we're in 2 different cities, it's a big hug. I think, if you want to, like, can people follow you somehow?
Yeah, man. Firstly, I just want to say thanks for having me on, and I appreciate you doing this, man. It takes courage, it takes consistency, it takes resilience to continue creating this stuff. And I think the domain of conversation is never been more powerful and accessible as it is now. So it's really cool that you're doing this. And as I said, I just really appreciate and respect you and the way that you show up, the way that you go for things. Like, I've just seen you move to Australia, running events, you're doing other things like as soon as you get there. And I really respect and admire that kind of just willingness and that tenacity to just take on life and do it, be the real creator of your masterpiece. So I just want to acknowledge you. And then
thank you.
Yeah, man, to find me, it's Andrew W. Gordon, it's O-N, Gordon on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube's inactive at the moment, but there's some cool stuff coming. And yeah, you can find me there. And otherwise, you can also find us at The Freedom Family on Facebook and Insta and stuff like that too. There's lots of content and films and stuff coming, working on documentaries, all that sort of stuff.
Amazing. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you to everyone who's been listening.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.